Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of the Mission Matters Money podcast, your source for all things money. My name is Adam Torres. You can follow me on Instagram at AskAdamTorres to keep up with my book releases, book tour schedule, signings, all that other good stuff. Always love to connect with you there. And as always, if you'd like to apply to become a co-author of one of my upcoming books, just head on over to the website, missionmatters.com, and click on Become an Author to apply. All right, so today I have Jason Severson on the line. He's a president over at Primary Funding Corporation. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Adam. Thanks for having me.
All right, so excited to get into today's topic. So we're going to get into Primary Funding Corporation and lending trends. But before we do that, I'd like to go a little bit further into your background. So let's talk a little bit more about how you got started in your career and in business.
Well, so I actually started my career off in commercial banking, traditional kind of business banking, followed in my dad's footsteps, actually. He was a longtime banker here in San Diego. I did that for about 17 years until ended up making the transition over to primary funding. My mother-in-law actually started primary funding 25 years ago, and unfortunately in 2012 she suffered a massive stroke and has never worked since. So I ended up essentially coming over, taking over the family business, and that was about 7.5 years ago.
Let's go a little bit further into that. So Primary Funding Corporation, tell us a little bit more about the company and what you do.
So Primary Funding's an alternative lender mainly for B2B companies, business-to-business companies that generate accounts receivables. And as you know, with businesses that are growing rapidly, they need cash. Cash is king, and businesses that are growing rapidly eat up a lot of cash. They've got payroll, they have to pay vendors, that kind of thing, and they're not all bankable. Banks look at a segment of the business world where they can lend money to, but there's a big segment of that population that can't get what they need from a traditional banking source. And so that's where primary funding comes in with these growth companies that can't get what they need from a bank, but they still need capital to grow. And so, we come in, we help them with the capital for 6, 12, 24 months, sometimes longer, but we give them the sort of the dry powder that they need to get their business to the next level.
So a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, and executives listening to this right now, and at the end of this, I'm going to give you an opportunity to leave contact info, whether you choose to leave a website or otherwise, so people can follow up if they do want to learn more. That being said, so that the right businesses do connect, what are the types of companies that you typically like to work with, or that are normally a good fit for Primary Funding Corporation?
Yeah, good question. We're a general factoring company. So the product that we provide is actually called factoring or accounts receivable finance, invoice financing. It's got a number of different names, but we are in the industry known as a general factoring company, which means that we provide financing to a pretty wide variety of types of companies from an industry standpoint. What's pretty typical is staffing companies, manufacturing companies, distributors, software companies, any company, generally speaking, that generates accounts receivables. So they're selling, to another business and providing payment terms of 30 or 45 or 60 days, and they can't wait 30, 40, 50 days to get paid. And so it's really a pretty wide range of companies from an industry standpoint. From a revenue standpoint, they're generally companies that are maybe 1 to 20 million in revenue. That's really our target.
So this next question, it may seem loaded, but I'm asking it with the understanding that this is a 10 to 15 minute podcast episode. We can't solve everybody's problem in one little short session, but I am interested to get your take on this, because you do come from the traditional banking world, a banking family, and now you're also working in factoring also. So you have a different vantage point. When does a business owner many times, we're not going to say every time, but many times know that it's right to start taking on debt in order to kind of facilitate this growth. Because I feel like some businesses, they think they should, maybe they don't, and they're in this growth mode, and sometimes they just kind of hold back, and that's what keeps many small businesses small, because they don't really understand the mechanics of leverage. So what would be your take on that?
That is a loaded question. There's
I told you.
There's a lot to that. Our capital is not cheap like bank capital. Businesses need to use our type of financing if it's really facilitating growth and it's leading to an end in sight. And the end is really a graduation to a traditional banking source. But they need to understand what their margins are. They need to. It's fine to take on debt if it's going for a positive situation. There's a vision there. They're going to use it for the right purposes, and it's going to help get them from point A to point B. So, every business is individual. Every situation is unique. We work with some companies who it's less about profitability to them. They just want to grow top line. Other businesses are hyper-focused on growth on the bottom line, and it depends on what they're doing with the business. If it's a lifestyle business, if they're growing top line because they want to sell for a multiple down the road. I mean, every situation is so unique. But when we get involved with a company, one of the things that we do because of our banking background, we like to get financial statements on our clients, generally speaking, because we want to understand what's going on. We want to give advice. We want to give perspective. We've seen a lot of businesses coming from the banking world and having a banking background and looking at things from that perspective. We only want to help companies that we truly feel our type of capital is going to help them and help them along their journey. So, but we could do a much longer podcast with a lot more. No.
Totally get it. And the reason, but what you did say is very valuable, because what it does is it allows somebody to start thinking, like even just the idea of top line versus bottom line and what model they're going for and there's just a lot of different ways to really consider finance and leverage and taking on debt, whether it makes sense, it doesn't make sense. And obviously it's the business owner's preference too, right? So maybe they don't want to be a large company. Maybe they're comfortable where they're at and at their earning capacity. There's a lot of different things that play, and that's why generally speaking, that's why a lot of people are in business, because they want to control their own destiny, or they want to play by their own rules. For some people, that's the reason why they do what they do. Sign up for that pain of entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah, and on that note, sometimes it's a lot of entrepreneurs. They understand their product, they're passionate about what they do, but they need help figuring out what the future looks like. And I work with a business coach. I meet with them once a month. We talk about goals, about where the company is headed. He gives me advice and insight on how I look at things. And entrepreneurs need to surround themselves with good consultants and advisors and people around them to help figure a lot of that kind of thing out.
That's awesome. So, Jason, if somebody is listening to this and they want more information and they want to connect and learn more about your services over at Primary Funding Corporation, what's the best way for somebody to reach out and to connect?
Yeah, they can go to www.primaryfunding.com, or they can call our office at 858-530-1500. I'm happy to answer questions. We've got a great team here, and we'd love to help anybody out, or at least advise people on what to look for and how we might be able to help them.
That's awesome. Well, Jason, really appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and your banking legacy, and also all the great work you're doing over at Primary Funding Corporation. And to the audience, as always, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got a lot of value out of this. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave me a review in the Apple iTunes Store, and if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Money, definitely give us a subscribe there, but also leave us some comments in the video. Love to know what kind of projects and things that you're working on. And Jason, thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam. Really appreciate the time.